The simplest way to divide mobile phones into categories is to either classify them as dumb phones or smartphones. Even though categorizing phones like that is usually enough, what about the phones that can't be easily classified using this simple two-way division? Today we are going to take a look at 3 mobile phones that by definition could be called smartphones, but weren't treated as such by their vendors. Instead, they were positioned as a sort of middle ground between smartphones and dumb phones. Welcome to MjorkNet, and this is the story of the dumb smartphones.
In 2011, Nokia announced its new flagship line of phones, the Lumia series. But with the Windows Phone OS requiring higher specs to run, it wouldn't be possible to make the Lumia lineup stretch into the lower-end devices territory. That's why, besides the high-end Lumia series, Nokia introduced the Asha line. This new Asha line encompassed both the keyboard-operated and low-end touchscreen devices. But with the abandonment of Symbian OS, the only platform that would remain available for those kinds of phones was the Series 40 platform, which wasn't even compatible with full touchscreen operated devices. To remedy that, Nokia would create a special version of the S40 called the Asha Touch. Still, Asha Touch would remain just a software platform, not a proper operating system. This meant that Nokia low-end touchscreen phones would remain behind the capabilities of the smartphones of the competition. For Asha full-touch phones to get up to speed, the aging S40 needed replacement. Nokia clearly knew it, since a new lightweight OS had been in the works since 2010. However, the first attempt, internally dubbed the Meltemi project, was cancelled in mid-2012. Instead, it used Smarterphone OS, which Nokia had acquired with its parent company in 2011, as the base for the Nokia Asha platform. This new OS would make its debut with the Nokia Asha 501. But today we'll experience the best the Asha platform could have provided on the last phone of the 500 series, the Nokia Asha 503. While picking up the Asha 503, it's hard not to notice its compact form, especially for a full touch-operated device. It seems designed to be used with one hand and easily stored in any pocket. In spite of its tiny size, the effort put into its design doesn't seem to be small in any way. The removable back cover might be made of plastic, not comparable to the quality of the polycarbonate shells of the Lumia series, but it doesn't feel too cheap. The icing of the cake, though, is how the back cover is made to look like the real cover was frozen in an ice cube, pun intended. In reality, to create this illusion, the plastic cover is transparent, painted underneath. Especially on the white model, the paint looks almost liquid, like milk. At the bottom of the 503, we find a knob that helps push the back cover out, but is also used as a speaker grill. Above the Nokia logo, we find the 5-megapixel camera with LED flash beside it. On the front, we find the 3-inch capacitive TFT screen, protected with Corning Gorilla Glass, and with only one touch button. All of this creates a unique and simple image for this affordably priced semi-smartphone. The 240 by 320 screen might not be impressive, but because of its small dimensions, it does look awfully pixelated. The screen also isn't lacking in both the viewing angles and colors department. The former are more than acceptable for a TFT screen, and the latter could be described as pleasantly vibrant. The Asha platform took a lot of inspiration from the short-lived MeeGo OS. That's not a coincidence. The user interface design team was headed by Peter Skillman, who had worked previously on the design of MeeGo for the Nokia N9. In the settings, you can enable waking the phone by double-tapping the screen and the glance screen, which is just a different name for always on display. The 503 makes a heavy use of the swipe motion to operate its user interface. To unlock the phone, you have to swipe either left or right. The same motion is used to close the open apps, which can also be done by using the capacitive button. You can swipe down from the top to access the quick toggle menu, like on Android or Windows Phone, but you won't find your notifications there. The Fastlane Notification Center, which is accessed once again by swiping left or right or by using the arrow button, was the highlight of the Asha platform user interface. But it wasn't just a notification center, it was also a timeline of both past and upcoming activities that allowed for some social media integration. Despite this separate screen displaying your last opened apps, the Asha platform doesn't allow for multitasking. The only exception to this was the music and radio apps that allowed for background music playback. The lack of proper multitasking made the Asha platform lesser than other smartphone OSs, for which multitasking had been a staple for quite some time. But that's not even the dumbest element of this half smartphone. The only apps you can run on Nokia 503 are Java ones or web apps. There aren't any native apps for the Asha platform. For some, all of this might even disqualify this phone from being an actual smartphone, but in reality the definition of a smartphone is not set in stone. Actually, the 503, with its rather limited OS and its lack of some features offered by most other smartphones, make it the perfect fit for the title of the dumb smartphone. While this Asha 500 series of phones didn't offer anything revolutionary, it filled the important gap between Windows Phone-powered smartphones and the S40 and S30 lowest-end dumb phones, and it did it with grace. Offering innovative gesture control borrowed from the highest-end Nokia N9 Smigo since the Nokia Asha platform launch, over 10 years have passed, but it doesn't feel like it, which is impressive, especially for a low-end device. It makes you wonder whether a device like that could return nowadays, especially with the resurgence of the dumb phones in recent years. It feels like a Nokia 503 inspired phone could once again become the middle ground, but this time for people looking to get away from their iPhones and Android smartphones. With HTC being nowadays best known as a pioneer of Android smartphones, it is easy to forget that it wasn't the only OS used on its phones, or even the first. But has HTC ever created a feature phone? The answer is both yes and no. It depends on how strict of a definition of a smartphone we use. But in this video, we are talking about the dumb smartphones, and the HTC Smart makes another great example of such a phone. HTC Smart runs Brew mobile platform operating system. It is one of the very few Brew devices released in Europe. Brew debuted in 2001 as an application development platform created by Qualcomm for CDMA phones. It is debatable whether Brew could be called a true operating system. It is similar to Java Micro Edition in some ways, but like it, Brew runs code natively, while J2ME runs it in a virtual machine. Due to these factors, Brew is usually referred to as a pseudo-operating system, but to not complicate things, we'll refer to it as any other OS, just a less capable one. That's not just our willfulness. HTC did the same. It advertised the HTC Smart as a cheap smartphone. It is easy to guess why. With all the higher-end Android and Windows Mobile smartphones being pumped out by HTC around 2010 and the lack of any feature phones in its offer, HTC saw potential in offering a cheaper alternative that could allow HTC to access a new low-end market. But making a cut-down Android devices wasn't enough, with even such devices having to be equipped with hardware capable of running Android, which wasn't the cheapest available. So that's why Brew MPA fit the bill. It was the only less demanding alternative to other available OSs, and at the time having years of development and support behind it. At the same time, calling a Java Micro Edition based device a smartphone would be a big stretch. Considering all of that, the choice of a rather obscure Brew MP doesn't seem so strange anymore. While not as unique as Asha 503's, HTC Smart's design shares small size with the Nokia. Unlike Asha, HTC feels even more natural to hold in hand because of its rounded rear edges. Speaking of the back cover, it's rubberized with HTC branding engraved in it and a metallic frame around the 3-megapixel camera module. Overall, its design looks par for the course for HTC phones from back then. On the other side, it's a different story though. Despite the HTC logo right beneath the 2.8-inch 240 by 320 TFT screen, Smart's front looks unlike any other phone offered by the company. The most striking is the big back arrow button, additionally highlighted by its silver contrasting color. By its sides there are both the call and disconnect buttons, which were slowly going out of fashion at the time. Making the phone's front even more asymmetric, there is also the oddly placed thin button. It's not hard to guess that the reason for this weird button layout is the OS running on the phone, but it's not like all Brew phones had designs like that. Some of you might have already spotted the small with HTC Sense imprint on the Smart's back. The Sense UI made its debut on HTC Hero, an early Android smartphone, and later was also adopted by HTC's Windows Mobile devices. Being used on most HTC phones, it quickly became the most popular custom UI for smartphones. It's no wonder then that Sense was used as the UI for HTC's new Brew-based phone. The Sense UI plays the first fiddle to such an extent that if not for the operating system tab in the settings menu, you probably wouldn't figure out that the phone is based on BrewMP. Nonetheless, let's explore what this extraordinary combination Brew and Sense UI had to offer. Even though HTC Smart is equipped with a resistive touchscreen, it is surprisingly easy to use without the stylus. And even the swipe gestures seem to work alright. With Sense UI revolving around custom home screens, the ability to scroll through their screens smoothly is all the more important. The prominent arrow button is at the center of attention for a reason. It has two important functions. The first one is probably the easiest to guess, and it's the back button, and the second is opening the main menu. The other unusually placed button is the Option key, which allows you to access the context menu. Having found out the purpose of all the unusual hardware buttons, let's finally get to know the previously mentioned centerpiece of the Sense UI, the custom home screens or the scenes. By default, there are 3 different scenes: lifestyle, work, and clean slate. Each one changes the wallpaper and the full screen widgets on the home screen. For example, the work scene has the email widget, lifestyle has the music widget, and the clean slate is self-explanatory. Changing between scenes is possible by swapping from the top down and revealing the scene selection menu. It is also possible to create your own custom home screens and later save them to be accessible in the scenes menu. However, for all the customization HTC Smart offered, of all things it didn't offer any sort of apps repository. What it meant in reality is that it was basically impossible to get any more apps on the phone other than the ones that had been pre-installed. That's especially a shame, because unlike the Asha platform on the Nokia 503, BrewMP is in theory capable of running its own native Brew apps. This is the most devastating blow to HTC's Smart status as a smartphone, and it makes it an ideal candidate for the title of the dumb smartphone.
KaiOS was created in 2017 to be a modern OS for the people in developing countries who haven't had a smartphone yet. Its mission was to connect the next billion users to the internet. KaiOS is a fork of Firefox OS and is optimized for cheap, low-end devices with T9 keyboards. Unlike Firefox OS, KaiOS is not open source. It supports apps made in HTML5 just like Firefox OS though. The first successful phone with this operating system on board was JioPhone, which sold over 5 million units. A lot of big companies like Google and TCL soon invested into KaiOS and its future looked promising, with KaiOS even becoming the 3rd biggest mobile operating system in the world. Unfortunately, all this hype ultimately died down since cheap Android phones from China flooded the market, offering much more than lacking KaiOS keyboard phones. Even though KaiOS devices could be considered smartphones, they are usually marketed as nothing more than internet-capable feature phones. It powers a lot of flip phones that you can find on the market, especially in India and US. One of those is the Nokia 2720. Nokia 2720 is a standard T9 keyboard flip phone, with a D-pad, but also a back and shortcuts button. It's made from plastic and it feels pretty cheap. This phone gives off vibes of an old person's phone, with its big backlit keys, which are comfortable though. The 2720 is equipped with a 2-megapixel camera with LED flash. It's not much and it screams 2006, but it's a flip phone, so we can give it a pass. What also reminds us of old phones is the screen resolution. It's 240 by 320, which sucks since the screen size is so big. While we are talking about screens, Nokia 2720 has 2 of them. Similarly to Motorola Razr, it's mostly used to show time and volume level. KaiOS has a pretty minimalistic look, reminiscent of older feature phone platforms. You move around it with a D-pad and select apps with a middle button. The phone comes pre-installed with all the usual apps like call log, contacts, gallery, etc., but also with stuff you usually see on Android devices like YouTube, Google Maps and even Google Assistant. There is also a Snake game reminiscent of the classic Nokia Snake, plus some Gameloft demos. The interface itself is fast and snappy. Doing the most basic tasks with this phone, like browsing menus and using built-in KaiOS apps, feels nice and responsive. Using the other apps is a different story though. YouTube launches in a browser and is super laggy, and so is Facebook. Maps are a little better and they don't launch in a browser, but they are pretty clunky. Even Snake doesn't run the best and sometimes stutters, which is surprising since it's not graphically impressive and this phone should run it with no problems. Gameloft demos run poorly as well. We have no idea who would buy the full versions of those games after playing those shoddy trials. This phone also lacks multitasking, which is something even some feature phones like Sony Ericsson K750i had back in 2005. Although it can open a few programs at once, jumping between them is impossible. For example, you can use one app and open Google Assistant at the same time, then leave, and the previous program would run like you never left it. Overall, the performance on the Nokia 2720 is lacking, since it tries to run modern web code on half a gigabyte of RAM and a pretty weak Snapdragon CPU. It's a pretty underwhelming device, and compared to older Nokia phones, even the future ones, it lacks innovation and soul. It does nothing to differentiate itself from non-smart flip phones in terms of design, and currently, after only 6 years, it lost support for a pretty important app, WhatsApp. Compared to 2019 Android smartphones that can still run it, it's not a good look. While it made sense for KOS to exist in 2017, when the cheapest Android phones didn't offer a quality experience, nowadays, when for the same price you can buy a limited KOS phone or a Chinese brand Android phone like Infinix with even 5G support, the choice is simple and not favorable to the former. Having taken a look at those three phones, we come to two conclusions. 1. As previously anticipated, the line between feature phones and smartphones is quite blurry. 2. Today we've only scratched the surface of the dumb smartphones category of devices, especially with how wide this term in theory could be applied. Still, we tried selecting the most quirky and unique phones that differed from each other. If you enjoyed this roster of phones, don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button, and we might delve into this topic deeper in the future.